Part 112. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1115. Chixu Headquarters, Tribunal. A golden beam of light shot down from space and landed directly on the main hall directly in front of the tribunal. Garen stood in front of the golden light with all the masters of the Red Snow section gazing at the beam of light with a humble smile. Hiss. The beam of light spread out, revealing a group of 9 people inside. All 9 people were wearing special golden clothes. The other 8 people were normal. Only the leader looked very strange. That's a two-faced man. There is a man on the front and a woman on the back, as if a man and a woman were cut into 2 pieces and glued together from the back, which is extremely weird. The leader was wearing a golden dress and had no hair. His shiny bald head reflected a faint silver color, which was obviously because he had absorbed some special substance in his body. Red Snow Sect. How courageous! Suddenly, the leader of the two-faced man let out a demonic high-pitched voice, shouting loudly in a very weird common language. Meet the envoys. Garen was still wearing a white robe and a golden helmet. He couldn't see the face inside the helmet clearly, only darkness. He led a group of masters who did not fall behind, and bowed slightly to Two-Face and the others. Greetings. You are blatantly breaking the rules of the Alliance. Why do you still need to meet? Two-Faced man's whole body was filled with extremely terrifying distortions, and his peak 9th level strength was unabashedly revealed. Not only him, but among the other 8 people behind him, there are also 2 9th level people, and the rest are all 8th level people. This kind of background is obviously something that only big sects can send out. The competition is about to begin, but you actually dare to take advantage of the situation and attack the headquarters of other factions. According to the rules of the Alliance, those who seriously break the rules will be punished with death according to the rules and regulations, Two-Face said in a sharp voice. The atmosphere suddenly became tense, and Chixu's masters suddenly became nervous. A trace of tense atmosphere escaped, and they might take action at any time. But Garen raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet, faced each other head-on, and spoke. Your Majesty the Envoy, our small sect also received requests for help from friends from other sects, and since the matter was so important, we had no choice but to quickly raise troops to help other sects eliminate future troubles. Garen explained with respect. There is a shocking secret hidden in this, and all the experts present can testify. Then Garen lowered his head and whispered a few words. The two-faced man and others originally had a casual attitude, but during this sound transmission, their eyes became somewhat serious. Soon the sound transmission ended, and Garen also transmitted a video, which was the memory of his battle with the Dark Dragon. After watching the video, do you mean everything you said? Two-Face's tone suddenly softened. It is simply unimaginable that the undercover spy within the mechanician was penetrated to this extent. They are in the big sects and don't care much about the situation of the small and medium sections. Looking back at this moment, if these sects suddenly break out in the big competition, the consequences are so serious that it's hard to predict. Two-Face himself is also a high-level person, and he knew the overall layout of some pilots against the energy mechanics, but he always thought that the consequences would not be so serious. Unexpectedly, when he heard Garen talking about it, he was suddenly shocked. I can guarantee that everything I said is true, Garen answered with unusual certainty. If you don't believe it, you can also ask other guardians of the genre that I have been to. It is impossible to fake this matter, and I don't have that much ability to fake it. The competition will officially start in a few days. If what you said is true, then we also need a huge deployment of strength here, but now I am afraid it is difficult to allocate the strength to worry about this side. Two-faced man, his tone softened. If what you said is true, then you have made a great contribution in this matter. I will convey your contribution to the 3 holy lords. Seeing that Garen's strength in the video was obviously at the peak of level 9, Two-Face looked at each other squarely, and after getting such a big piece of information, he also started to lower his profile towards Garen. "Thank you very much, Envoy. You don't have to be polite." Lord Galen Two-Face also became polite. "I don't know if there are other guardians of the Red Snow Alliance here. I hope to meet them in person and ask about the specific situation." "That's no problem," Garen nodded. "Recently, because our sect unexpectedly obtained a strange special treasure that can enhance its own strength, and because I felt that the Energy Master might encounter a disaster, I decided to invite a few of the sects with the best connections. The Lord came to share, and now they happen to be still here and have not left. The messenger can inquire at any time." He deliberately used the words treasure and enhancement of strength very clearly, and the meaning of bribery was obvious. After hearing this, Two-Face's eyes moved slightly. Treasures that can enhance their strength at their level are simply top-notch treasures of heaven and earth, and are not just ordinary things that can work. "This is the envoy, please." Garen stretched out his hand to guide a group of 9 people to the stone stairs leading to the banquet hall on the other side. The other Ice Demon generals exchanged hidden glances, and naturally dispersed with understanding, leaving only the 8th level Asho Bingyang, who like an old butler began to get close to several messengers. Along the way, Garen notified several guardians directly and without concealment through the mark to come and pay homage to the envoy. The several guardians who were parasitized by him also showed some vigilant reactions, and their mentality of not wanting to share the treasure with more outsiders was very real. This made Two-Face, who thought he had overheard the message, feel more confident. "Didn't you say it would only be shared with a few people? Why is there an extra messenger now?" the mummy said, dissatisfied in the message. "Am I afraid of him as a 9th level Apex person? This envoy is different. He is different from other envoys before." Garen persuaded the mummy reluctantly and hung up angrily. "Golden Mummy? I've heard of this person. Isn't he only at level 8? Why did he suddenly become level 9? In the envoy team, a blue-haired woman behind Two-Face suddenly asked. This Garen made an expression that was difficult to answer. "Pretend to be a ghost," the woman asked disdainfully and stopped asking. They are all two-faced people, but they are somewhat dissatisfied with the blue-haired woman. This allows Garen and others to see that this team is not monolithic. The peak level 9 of the big sect is not an ordinary level 9. Their trump card may be the same as the Dark Dragon, or even stronger. They can be solved by other means. Naturally, Garen will not choose to use violence. Soon the group was led to the banquet hall. Several guardians were already waiting there. Although they were very disdainful in private, they still had to do enough on the surface. After all, the envoy represents the entire mechanic union. As soon as they entered the banquet hall, they did not look at the handsome men and beauties who were arranging food and dishes like butterflies. Almost all the eyes of the envoy and his party were focused on the several guardians who stood up from their seats. For an energy weapon master at this level, his own energy weapon mark can be used as the largest database, and the guardian's information is naturally included in it. In just a short time, this group of people will have the 3 guardians here. All the details were found out. Even the strength and weakness of their schools and some detailed information were found. But what really shocked them was that the strength of these people was seriously inconsistent with their intelligence, and they were seriously underestimated by an average of 1 level. At the 8th level, what is the concept of level 1? Just look at the comparison of the numbers between level 8 and level 9 to see how big a gap there is between level 8 and level 9. According to official statistics, there are more than 60,000 level 8 masters in the entire human race. As for level 9, there are only more than 5,000 people. This is the number within the entire human race, including pilots. The total current population of the entire human race cannot be estimated at all, it is just a rough statistics from the last time. The humans, together with the Finites, rule tens of thousands of life planets and hundreds of thousands of non-inhabited planets. There are at least 7 to 8 billion people on each planet. Such a huge population base is distributed in two major nebulae. There are only more than 5,000 level 9 masters among them, which is a very scary ratio. After all, not all planets have guardians above level 8. Only important planets are protected by level 8, 9, or even 10th level eternal movers. Most other planets will naturally not allocate such important combat power. And this data has basically remained unchanged for thousands of years. In other words, over the course of thousands of years, very few of the 8-level groups were able to break through to the 9th level, at least not enough to affect numerical changes. You can see the difficulty. If you want to enter the 9th level from the 8th level, in addition to suffering for at least 1,000 years, you must also understand the realm of the sublimation plate. Once you understand something like realm, it will rise like a rocket. If you don't understand it, no matter how much you accumulate in your life, it will be in vain. But now, what shocks the envoy and his party is that the 3 people who were at level 8 decades ago according to the intelligence report have actually entered level 9 at this moment. Not to mention entering level 9, they actually still have the peak of level 9? This Two-Face suppressed the shock in his heart and instantly understood that this must be the function of the treasure that Garen mentioned before. Your Majesty, the messenger's guess is correct, Garen whispered. The reason why I went out to look for this treasure resource in the Alliance is because I know that my own sect is simply unable to master this top-level resource. This is the key reason for the establishment of the Chixu Alliance. If the messenger is willing to join us, the treasure will naturally be sent to us. Your share, this treasure can only have one effect on one person, but it can enhance and strengthen all aspects of the body's qualities more than 10 times in disguise, which is very terrifying. The Two-Face Man was originally extremely greedy, and when he heard this, a glimmer of expectation flashed in his eyes. Show me the treasure first. The other envoys could not suppress their curiosity and expectations, and everyone looked at Garen. Galen first asked everyone to sit down separately. It just so happens that Lord Messenger has arrived. If our alliance can get Lord Messenger to join us, our alliance will definitely be greatly strengthened. Looking at everyone's expectant and impatient eyes, Garen stopped talking. Turning his hand, palm upward, a round meatball full of blue tentacles lay quietly in his palm. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1116. This treasure seems to be some kind of parasite. After entering the human body, it can form a layer of ice armor outside the human body in an auxiliary form, which can improve all aspects of the human body's quality in disguise, and the magnitude is huge. Galen introduced. He said while handing the twisted seed to Two-Face. The Two-Faced Man took it with a steady expression. As soon as he took it, he quickly began to scan and analyze the structure with the energy mark. As for the mission he came here this time to punish the Chixu sect, he had already forgotten about that matter. If this thing can really have a harmless increase on him, he is already at the top of the 9th level. This is a real level 10 existence. By the time when he thought of this, the woman's face behind the Two-Faced Man suddenly flashed a hint of fear in his eyes. In the banquet hall, the 3 mummies remained silent, snorting from time to time, as if they didn't give Two-Face much face. In fact, the strength of their alliance is already very strong, and they are no less generous than other major factions. They are not afraid of the major factions represented by the messenger Two-Face at all. If it weren't for their status as alliance envoys, these people would probably have the intention of killing Two-Face. The atmosphere in the banquet hall also seemed to be very gunpowder under the pressure of the 3 9th level people. Sure enough, this treasure has a strong amplification ability. Two-Face put down the seed of distortion in amazement and praised, but he also has a shortcoming. What shortcomings? A male messenger couldn't help but ask. Two-Face glanced at him. It's an attribute. Attributes. Several messengers quickly understood and felt the cold air radiating from the twisted seed, and obviously knew what the attributes he meant. Yes, Energy attribute. The two-faced man looked at Garen and smiled slightly. Although this treasure can increase the strength, it will convert all the attributes of the parasite into cold attributes, and it can also naturally pass through some kind of the channel is connected with other people of the same kind. In other words, if you use this treasure, you will theoretically be transformed into another genetic physique race. Your Majesty, the messenger is really awesome, Garen said in a tone that couldn't help but admire him. You can see the core at a glance. What are the side effects? The blue-haired female messenger asked in a low voice. Even she was a little tempted at the moment. Her genes do not have any attributes, so there is no need to worry about conflicts in this regard. The side effect is very simple, the two-faced man whispered, that is personality. The personality will be affected and become a little indifferent, which is related to the energy conversion mechanism of this treasure. Of course, this side effect is simply too small compared to its function. Wow! Tisk tisk, it's such an amazing miraculous treasure, he couldn't help praising it. Indifferent personality, this is not a problem for anyone here. After living for too long, it is almost inevitable that the personality will become indifferent. So, what do you mean, Master Messenger? Garen asked again. Let me try this treasure first to see how effective it is. How is it? The two-faced man smiled and looked at Garen. After all, I am a 9th level apex, so whether this increase can have an effect on me is also a question. I just don't know. Are there many such treasures? Don't worry about the quantity. It's because of the large quantity that I formed an alliance. I hope to gather everyone's strength to protect the secret that belongs to our weapon masters, Garen said calmly. In this way, I don't have to worry. The two-faced man nodded, opening his mouth and preparing to swallow the twisted seed directly into his mouth. Obviously, through analysis, we know that this is the best way to be parasitized. Etc. The moment the twisted seed was put to his mouth, the blue-haired woman suddenly spoke. The twisted seed hung on the edge of Two-Faced's mouth. He put it down again and looked at the blue-haired woman. Tiga Yuko, what do you think? The two-faced man said in a low voice with a slight frown. The blue-haired female messenger glanced around Garen and several guardians, frowning. Such a treasure can be obtained so easily. It's like a good thing given to you on your own initiative. Is there such a good thing in the world? The three guardians said nothing, just sitting on their chairs calmly minding their own business. Bingyang beside Jia Long smiled softly. This Lord Envoy may have some misunderstandings. We couldn't believe such a treasure at first, but after many tests, we found that it did not have any major side effects, so we felt relieved. The reason why we are so proactive is also because we have our own selfish motives. If we can bring a few adults into our alliance, then our power will become even greater. After taking this treasure, we are actually essentially a race, and we can even pass this. This kind of treasure can naturally transmit information and communicate over long distances without using other technological means. Similar to telepathy, the blue-haired woman asked with a frown. You can understand it that way. Bingyang maintained a gentle smile. Standing next to Garen, there was nothing unusual about either of them. Any more questions? Miss Yuko, the two-faced man was already a little unhappy. I'm not worried about you taking the treasure first. Why don't you let me do it first? Yuko, a blue-haired woman, stretched out her hand to grab the twisted seed in Two-Faced's hand. The two-faced man's eyes flickered, he put down the seed, and let the other party snatch it away. I've heard for a long time that Miss Yuko has blood that can decompose all things, so I'd like to take this opportunity to open my eyes. If this treasure can have an effect on your genes and bloodline, it will really be a priceless treasure. Yuko didn't comment, didn't even look at it, and just stuffed the twisted seed into his mouth. The twisted blue seed was like a ball of thread, rolling directly down her throat into her esophagus, quickly melting, decomposing, and being absorbed into the surrounding throat walls. Well. Yuko's expression became a little strange. It seemed that my body was in some indescribable discomfort. A faint chill began to emanate from the surface of her body, which made Garen feel relieved. After all, the cold peacock is just a kind of void creature. The universe is so big that it is impossible for everything to be contaminated and invaded at will. I just heard the Two-Face man say that Yuko's blood is the blood that decomposes all things, and I was immediately worried. Worried that the twisted seed might not work. But now it seems that the genes of this female messenger are not in this category. Everyone waited quietly, watching the changes in the blue-haired woman's body. The cold air was getting heavier and stronger. It faintly aroused the cold air of the other guardians. Suddenly, the temperature of the entire banquet hall instantly dropped by dozens of degrees. Some ordinary people guarding outside shivered and had a layer of condensation on their bodies. Layer of hoarfrost. Time passed bit by bit, and soon, a faint white air spurted out from Yuzai's mouth and dissipated in the air in front of him. She slowly closed her eyes. I feel that my body is constantly covered with a thin layer of ice. This ice layer is very strange. It can bend freely. It is not as hard and brittle as solid ice at all, but as soft as rubber and equally cold. What a powerful amplified ice armor, Yuko sighed. How's it going? The two-faced man leaned forward slightly and asked expectantly. It's okay, but the effect is not as expected. Yuko suddenly opened her eyes, and her whole body was filled with coldness. The chair she was sitting on quickly froze and was covered with a thick layer of ice. Whoosh! A dark disk suddenly flashed across his eyes. The violent and powerful aura was just about to burst out, but she was forcibly suppressed. What a powerful force, Yuko couldn't help shouting. The force field on her body twisted violently, and she exhaled a breath of cold air. In an instant, the entire Chixu star seemed to hear her exhalation. Every move can affect the movement of the planet. This is the sign of the 9th level peak. In just a short moment, Yuko went from the low level of 9th level to the top. This made the eyes of Two-Face and other messengers go straight. This is really a priceless treasure. Two-Face's serious greed could no longer be suppressed. Their eyes, along with those of the other people, were all focused on Garen. Lord of the Gallon faction, I don't know about this kind of treasure. Don't worry, Envoy, we are ready. Garen's voice came out respectfully from under his helmet. Several more twisted seeds appeared in his hands. These twisted seeds automatically floated up one by one like yarn balls, flying separately towards Two-Face and the others. Outside the Chixu star, on the yellow planetary ring of the planet, 3 figures suddenly appeared out of thin air on a gray-white meteorite several kilometers in size. The 3 of them stood on the meteorite, quietly looking at the huge red snow star. Some tiny pieces of space dust and rubble were automatically avoided around them, as if they were alive. However, upon closer inspection, one could discover that there was an invisible and tyrannical force field around the 3 of them, which could automatically block all external things. It seems that Giliac is doing well, the little red-haired girl said with a smile. How about we kill him quietly? The white-haired man said helplessly on the side. With this delay, who knows what else he might dare to do. This guy is already out of control. The evil Shadow royal family was originally in chaos. Even the whole family was fighting against each other. We just got the news that the new evil Shadow King has killed her father Taser Amin. Now he has issued a challenge statement and will officially challenge His Majesty next month. The little red-haired girl curled her lips. I think she's looking for death. The evil Shadow royal family are all lunatics, perverts who won't give up until they push themselves to a desperate situation. I heard them say that this way can you tap your potential as quickly as possible. Let's go, Shinandi said softly. Flying straight towards Scarlet Snow Star. The speed seems slow, but in fact it covers tens of thousands of kilometers in almost a few seconds. Soon it turned into a red meteor falling from the sky. The mark of the red snow sect itself completely failed to reflect on the blocked fire network, and they automatically cooperated and separated. 3 meteors quickly fell from the sky, directly hitting the direction of Chixu's headquarters. The seeds of distortion were swallowed by all remaining messengers. Several people closed their eyes one after another, feeling the changes that were happening rapidly inside their bodies. This feeling Two-Face closed his 4 eyes tightly and murmured to himself, seeming to be a little confused about the role of the distortion seed. It seems that there are still areas that I have not analyzed properly. He quickly took the initiative to accept the cold energy of the twisted seed, letting go of the cold energy and letting it flow freely into his sublimation plate. The disk of sublimation hovering in the depths of his mind was completely black, exuding a trace of inexplicable and strange suction, and soon absorbed all the power and chill of the twisted seed. A thin layer of ice armor gradually began to cover his body. The force field fluctuations at the 9th level peak appeared involuntarily, and gradually began to affect the geomagnetic field of the entire Chixu star. The ground shook slightly. In the banquet hall, Garen and several other level 9s took action at the same time, emitting their own force fields and beginning to neutralize the fluctuations of Two-Face. The earth has also returned to calmness, and nature has calmed down. Buzz. Suddenly there was a slight vibration in the sky outside. Huh? This is it. Garen raised his head slightly, as if he felt an indescribable huge aura pressing towards his location. That aura has gone beyond the definition of powerful, and can only be described as profound. It's like a spring that continuously gushes out water. Countless violent force fields spewed out from the springs, overwhelming the entire Chixu headquarters. Yuko, who had just reached the 9th level and was still familiar with the power, felt a terrifying wave of pressure coming down, as if she wanted to suppress the aura of all the masters present. As an alliance messenger, she had never seen such a big scene. He immediately recognized the person who came as the 10th level Eternal Dynasty Holy Lord. He is a Holy Lord level master. Her expression changed, she stood up suddenly, and looked at the sky across the roof. The other guardians also changed their colors and stood up. The 8th level messengers who had just been promoted to the 9th level were also suppressed by this aura. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1117. The roof slowly parted automatically, revealing the blue sky above. In the sky, 3 figures were floating quietly, overlooking the people below. Any one of the 3 people was unscrupulously exuding the most terrifying and profound aura. It was a bottomless aura like a black hole. 3 eternal movers. Yuko's face suddenly became extremely ugly. Not only her, but the expressions of other alliance envoys also changed suddenly, and they all felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Garen stood up and looked up at Carthage suspended in the sky. Maybe he should be called Shinandi now. He didn't expect that Carthage would suddenly arrive at this time. Trying to suppress the uneasiness in his heart, Garen spoke in a calm tone with a hint of ridicule. The famous Holy Lord, the eternal light of justice, is here in person. I, Chixu Galan, did not come out to greet me. I am extremely sorry. His identity at the moment was G-Liasi, not the Garano Nozawa he once was, and the traces of evil aura left by him suddenly escaped. No Siwa, you violated the rules of the school. Shinandi was still extremely cold, even colder than before. Even the sound has almost no fluctuation. Garen's face condensed slightly under his helmet. Raising his head, the eyes in the helmet met Heather's white eyes. Neither of them flinched, staring straight at each other. Even if his strength is not as good as his opponent, Garen still has no intention of backing down. He inherited the will of all the predecessors of the Chixu sect and is destined to become the strongest person in the world. If he doesn't even dare to face the 10th level eternal mover in front of him, then how can he face those superior king level ones in the future? Boom. An invisible light of the soul poured fiercely down Garen's eyes into the depths of his soul. The huge pressure like a heavy hammer made his eyes blurry and blurry. But he still tried to keep his eyes open. Not only him, but everyone else present was severely shaken by this spiritual light at this moment. The air was stiff and solidified. Everyone was like insects in amber, suppressed and imprisoned by the huge and infinite force field fluctuations. The gap between force fields is so cruel. You are stronger than others, but the force field suppresses the other party, and the other party does not even have the ability to take action. This is the Chixyu section. As the leader of the sect, everything I say is the rule. Garen could no longer see clearly. He didn't expect that Shinandi's strength was so terrifying. Just the suppression of the force field was enough to defeat him. The 10th level self was out of breath. But his dignity as a secret warrior kept him from compromising or retreating. Even though he couldn't see, he still used his best strength to raise his voice and spread it loudly. At this moment, he represents not only himself, but also the many Chixyu patriarchs who sacrificed for himself. If so many soul seeds were sacrificed just to be easily crushed and surrendered at this moment, then why should he become the strongest in Chixyu? Why have you reached the strongest peak of secret warriors? The sound waves reverberated in the space, reverberating between Jialong and Shinandi, and suddenly woke up the 9-level people who were imprisoned nearby. Boom! The terrifying and endless pressure fell from the sky, focusing heavily on Garen. His white robes were flying and rolling wildly, and his golden helmet was still as cold and hard as before, blocking anyone who wanted to peek inside the helmet. The darkness representing the face looked up at Shinandi without wavering at all. But inside the helmet, traces of cracks like broken porcelain gradually appeared on Garen's entire body. G-Liacy has actually entered the 10th level, but there is a gap between the 10th levels, Captain, the red-haired little girl said in a low voice. Otherwise, let's just kill these people here. Hee, the Mechanics Alliance has too much to take care of itself now anyway. I think it's okay. It's just a small sex destruction. It's just a few so-called messengers. Just kill them. Now that the plan has almost become upright, do you still need to cover it up like this? The white-haired man asked at the side. His hair agreed. Shinandi was silent and did not speak. The wind was howling, and more people on the ground realized something was wrong. A large number of people from the Chixyu sect walked out of their residences and looked at the 3 figures suspended in the sky. Alice and Aloran walked out of their residence and looked up at the sky, with a look of surprise on their faces. That's the light of justice. Alice grabbed her long hair to prevent it from being blown around by the strong wind. That face, looks like a senior brother from Carthage. She noticed that Shinandi's hand had slowly grasped the hilt of the sword at her waist. An indescribable feeling of fear suddenly surged into her heart. Alice looked at Aloran flying in the distance, and saw the same horror and fear on her face. Not only them, but also all the people walking out around them, the fear on everyone's face was the same. This is not their own fear, it is the fear of the entire Chixyu star. The light of justice wants to destroy the entire red snow star. An unbelievable and terrifying thought suddenly came out of her heart, and Alice felt that it was difficult to breathe in her throat. The huge airflow seemed to have invisible magic power. It was clearly surging in front of him, but he couldn't breathe any air at all. This is planetary confinement, an ability that had only been seen in the Foundation before appeared in Alice's mind. Not only her, but everyone around her felt difficulty breathing. Even some creatures that didn't need to breathe at all felt this indescribable sense of suffocation. At this moment, everyone on Chixyu Star felt that their breathing was almost suppressed and their bodies were getting weaker. A trace of death began to spread across the entire planet. Some of the fragile bugs and small animals in the jungle were the first to suffocate to death, followed closely by the slightly larger marine life fish. Millions of lives are dying every moment. Shinandi. Suddenly, besides Galleon, another 10th level aura burst out. The two-faced man's four eyes that had been closed suddenly opened. A strange and cruel aura centered on him and spread to all directions. Wherever the breath passed, all the ground turned into gold. In just an instant, with the two-faced man as the center, the entire area of several thousand meters turned into a sea of gold. Countless golden pieces of gold slowly melted and flowed, and the banquet hall silently turned into gold and also melted. Everyone present was suspended in mid-air, wrapped and protected by this golden aura, fighting against Shinandi in the sky. With everyone at the center, all the surrounding gold melted into liquid and began to revolve around everyone, spinning into a huge golden vortex turntable. Looking from top to bottom, the entire court floor turned into a huge golden vortex, slowly rotating, and it was extremely spectacular. The two faces of the two-faced man, a man and a woman, gave out a strange and unruly smile. Do you want to obliterate this messenger? As the majestic messenger of justice, the light of justice, you would actually do such a cruel thing? Want to massacre the entire planet? The rotation of the gold caused the power of the planet's confinement to suddenly shake, and it slowly dispersed and relaxed. Garen stood behind Two-Face without saying a word. After the pressure was removed, he allowed Two-Face and Shinandi to confront each other head-on. Shinandi's hand holding the sword hilt slowly loosened her grip. His stiff eyes stared quietly at the two-faced man below. Son. The 10th level Holy Sun is in a bit of trouble. The two people behind Shinandi were also a little surprised. The Holy Sun mainly refers to the descendants with the blood of the saint. Generally, they are direct relatives. Only the second generation of the saint will be called the Holy Sun. Such masters are generally far superior to ordinary strong men. If they enter the 10th level, the bloodline will be superimposed. Even more terrifying, not to mention actual combat power, survivability is absolutely number one, and various methods of escape at the Holy Lord level emerge endlessly. In addition, level 10 permanent movers are very difficult to kill. Although the strength of the three of them is far superior to each other, it would be a bit troublesome to kill a 10th level Holy Sun. Once one of them escapes. At this time, the two-face below, who had absorbed the seed of distortion, had understood his relationship with Garen. Although he felt a little unhappy, he still stood in front of Garen and blocked him firmly behind him. Two groups of people stood up and down, confronting each other. The wind was blowing, the planet's confinement had been lifted, and the entire space had returned to its original normal condition. Shinandi. Do you want to rebel? The two-faced man shouted fiercely. Holy Lords can't fight each other easily, and they can't use planet-destroying abilities easily. Have you forgotten all these rules? Shinandi's hand paused. No one said anything, and everyone could see that Shinandi was hesitating. The appearance of a 10th level Holy Sun was a variable that he could not expect. But only Two-Face and the others know that once they take action, everyone except Two-Face will die. Once Galen dies, Two-Face's strength will fall back to its original state, and he will also be killed by Shinandi and others. In other words, once you take action, everyone present will die. Time passed slowly, and everyone's eyes were focused on Shinandigzu's hand holding the hilt of the sword. The hand loosened slightly, and finally put it down gently. There was no expression on Shinandi's face, and she didn't seem to have any frustration with her decision. Let's go. He turned around and flew towards the universe. As the right-hand man of the White King, he has not yet revealed his identity at this moment. TCH, let you live longer, the red-haired girl curled her lips in disdain and left. The white-haired man sighed regretfully and followed closely. The three of them quickly disappeared outside the atmosphere of space, and the terrifying oppressive airflow slowly faded and dissipated. Until the three of them had completely lost even the slightest fluctuation. The two-faced man then lowered his head weakly, with a tired look on his face. Yuko and the others at level 9 felt like they had been granted amnesty, breathing heavily in the air. They didn't need air at all, it was just the fastest way to relax themselves. Jialong was still looking at the direction in which Shinandi and the others were flying away. He is worthy of being the top expert who was able to destroy almost an entire energy weapon master by himself. Even with the help of his team members, Shinandi's strength is still bottomless. Just wait, we will meet again. The general situation has gone awry, and Shinandi, who was not supposed to come back at this time, actually came back now. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1118. Since the Scarlet Snow sect forced back Shinandi and others, its reputation has rapidly spread from the surrounding star regions to further areas. For a time, the Scarlet Snow sect has gone from being an inconspicuous small sect to a large sect like the Scarlet Snow Alliance, among which are 8-level and 9-level masters, dominating the entire surrounding more than 20 solar systems, forming a huge force that cannot be ignored. Among them, Galen's reputation was overshadowed by the double-faced man. As the new Holy Master who has just been promoted as an Energy Master, Two-Face received a very grand celebration as soon as he returned. The masters of the three major organizations held a grand celebration ceremony for him. The masters and elders of his sect paid tribute to him. It held an even bigger celebration. In a short period of time, while the competition was being held, Two-Face also completely secured his new position within the faction, successfully taking control of the power known as the Bone Metal Sect, eliminating dissidents with resolute speed, and supporting people who would absolutely obey him. Person status. On Garen's side, he continued to gather various materials sent by the guardians of various factions and concentrated on practicing the body tempering technique. The 9th level body tempering technique quickly reached the 7th level due to the accumulation of a large number of different materials. The last two materials require very high quality. Such materials are almost difficult to find, so we can only wait for the time being. However, the physical constitution also increased by as high as 28 points. The total physical constitution reached 78 points, and Garen himself didn't know what strength he had reached, because there was almost nothing around him that could test his limits. The body is so powerful that it seems to have undergone some kind of special change after surpassing 70 points. Although it is only improved by using the body tempering technique to change directions and cover foreign objects. The actions of the Red Snow Alliance seemed to have aroused conflicts between certain factions. It seemed that the Mechanics Alliance was somewhat incapable of taking care of it, and even some small and medium-sized factions began to fight against each other. For a time, the entire alliance became a mess. However, the Mechanics Alliance showed no trace of any action. In this weird overall situation, the grand competition of Mechanic Masters was finally held with the anticipation of everyone from all walks of life. Nagatiko capital. White and blue fireworks slowly exploded everywhere on the entire surface of the red planet. The fireworks slowly spread out like ripples, blooming with layers of charm. Naga Star is surrounded by an unparalleled dark space-time storm in counter space. 8 silver-white metal pipes protruded from the storm, pointing straight at the entire Naga Star. Groups of people in various costumes are constantly pouring out of each silver channel. Waves of these people are picked up by spaceships coming and going, flying towards the direction of Naga Star. Now is a special period. Please forgive me, friends. The Naga planet is undergoing a large-scale transformation system. Therefore, the surrounding time and space channels can only be used as jumping points. You cannot jump directly to the Naga planet itself. This has caused all kinds of troubles. It's troublesome, so please forgive me. A man in red clothes was suspended in space, with bright red light blooming all over his body, attracting most people's attention. His voice was clearly transmitted to all pipe entrances and exits in all directions, allowing everyone to hear clearly. All guests and competitors are requested not to leave the prescribed channel line at will, otherwise you will be responsible for the consequences of any casualties. The man in red said calmly and loudly. It's just a competition, is it necessary to be so nervous? A group of women in white clothes walked out of a pipe, and one of them whispered disdainfully. We are a Star King level force. Even if we are out of range, how dare he do anything to us? How about you give it a try? Another leading woman said calmly. Just try it. The woman from before suddenly felt a trace of anger in her eyes, and she stretched out her hand. With a scoff, a bit of white light suddenly shot out and flew into space above. The white light flew higher and higher, and from a distance, it seemed to be a white mechanical bird. Until it flew out of the safe range of the tunnel, there was still nothing unusual about the white bird. Bai Feng, come back. The woman looked at the other woman provocatively and reached out to catch the falling white bird. Puff! At this moment, the mechanical white bird exploded, completely annihilating even the mechanical parts, leaving nothing behind. Let's go. Don't be embarrassed, the leading woman said calmly, leading the rest of the people out of the pipe and towards the spaceship flying towards them. The remaining woman who released the white bird looked a little dark. Solomon of Nebula, she stared fiercely at the man in red suspended high in the sky. She obviously vented her anger on him. Welcome all representatives of the Star King territory, Lord. At this time, a polite smile suddenly appeared on the machine-like cold face of the man in red high in the sky. At the same time, 3 sky-high white lights lit up on each of the 8 pipes. Each white light shrouded a team that had just come out. These were representatives of the 9 Star King level forces in the Human Alliance. Each Star King, actually he is a king, one of the 9 most powerful beings in mankind, and the 9 largest forces against the Phoenites. Their respective territories are astonishingly large and extremely far away from the star field of the energy masters here. Being able to send representatives here also shows an attitude. Respectful attitude. Laugh. On one of the pipes, a team of beautiful people holding flower baskets and wearing flawless white clothes slowly flew out. This team was all men, but their bodies were very slender and slender. They had long shawl hair like women, and eyebrows. There was a bright red vertical mark, and the clothes on her body were very similar to those of some goddesses in ancient mythology, but they were all obviously men, giving people an extremely weird feeling. The most eye-catching thing is the strength of their team. Some of the worst ones are not downgraded. They are so powerful that you can't see the details. It's just like a deep abyss, and the aura is obscure and hard to feel. Welcome to all of you from the Hornscale section. Solomon in the air spoke again to express his welcome. He was obviously also a Star King level force. Junior brother Solomon, you're welcome. A man leading the team, with skin as white as jade and a face that was more gentle than a woman's, responded softly. His pair of slender red phoenix eyes seemed to be shining with a faint silver light due to the music, giving people a bright and mysterious feeling. Senior brother Nadi is personally leading the team this time. Please move to the spaceship, Solomon replied with a hint of respect. The mellow man nodded, and led a group of junior disciples toward the entrance of the pickup spacecraft that seemed to be slow but actually was extremely fast. This group of people attracted the attention of the people around them, but most of the people's attention was focused on the faces of these men. Each of these men has a feminine face. If you don't look at the Adam's apple and chest, most people it was impossible to identify whether they were male or female. On the contrary, it gives people more of a neutral feeling. A group of neither male nor female monsters, 2 tall and strong men walked out of another passage in the distance. One of them spat disdainfully and rubbed his boot. The Hornscale faction has always been like this. When it changes and fights, it can rush faster than anyone else. Just get used to it. Another man wore sunglasses and had several blue antennas inserted like plug boards on his bare forehead. It seemed that it's because he has transformed his body into something terrible. Our 9 major forces arrived at almost the same time. It seems that everyone has a similar tacit understanding. I just don't like it. Cut it. The 2 quickly walked towards a spaceship that was picking them up alone. Just behind them, After some scattered people emerged, another group of people flashed in the white light and walked out of the passage. The leader was a man in white robes and a golden helmet, followed closely by disciples dressed in white. There were more than 10 people in the group, including men and women, old and young. "Are you from the Red Snow Alliance?" As soon as this group of people appeared, a voice came from the crowd behind and in front of them. "A master who dares to challenge the Alliance's regulations head-on. Let's see how the Alliance handles it this time." A person from a small sect in front immediately looked at him with vigilance. Under the leadership of an elder, he moved to the side to make way, meaning to let Chixu's people go first. Garen looked up at the dark space. There was a little red light in the distance directly in front of him. It was the halo released by Solomon of the Nebula to welcome all visitors. This halo can protect all those directly exposed to the space environment. People are provided with protective barriers to protect against cold temperatures and vacuums. Is this Naga star? It's so beautiful. In the team, Honguo and Baiye, who already had white hair, looked extremely curious. They had never seen the entire Naga star. In addition, no matter how mature he is still too young, so he is naturally a little shocked when he sees the unusually beautiful sight. Apart from them, there is another one that I haven't seen before, which is Ling Liang. Ling Guang is a somewhat mysterious person. He is not very old, but the city is very deep. He is ranked 15th in the Three Hearts. From Garen's induction, he felt that he has great potential, so he brought him here with him, which was an eye-opener. If you want to carry forward the Chixu sect, it is impossible without cultivating the talents behind it. And Honguo, Baiye, and Ling Guang are the geniuses selected by the Scarlet Snow sect itself. The others who came together this time were Alice, who ranked first in the Three Hearts, the three ice demon generals Bing Yang, Bing Hao, Bing Krak, and Mendi, a master of making energy mark. As for the others, they are just ordinary disciples who come to take charge of the trivial matters of life. Naga planet, you could jump in directly through the crater in the past, but now it seems that the situation is tense. Garen whispered. "Let's go." The people of the Red Snow Alliance quickly entered the spaceship that came to greet them. Soon after they entered, the surface of the spacecraft appeared like a display screen with the names of the major factions inside. Among them, the name of the Red Snow sect was the largest and most conspicuous. But compared with the previous situation where a big sect and a Star Emperor level force occupied a spaceship, the Chixu sect is still not very impressive. After all, no matter how much he plunders, he is still in the area of able weapon masters, and his reputation has not yet increased to the point of affecting other major forces. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1119. Garen and others sat in the rest area assigned to them, separated from other small and medium-sized schools around them, and there were dedicated people who served them various drinks and fruits. Although I didn't hear anyone talking about myself, it could be seen from the glances of some of the surrounding sect members that they were quietly communicating about the Red Snow Alliance. After all, the Chixu sect is a very powerful sect in this spaceship. With such a rapid rise in a short period of time, many masters appeared at once, and many spies had already been searching for information. The Red Snow sect had obtained some kind of treasure that could enhance its strength. Such rumors inevitably spread from within. This was inevitable for Garen and others. Although he tried hard to block the news still came out. Feeling the secretly observing eyes from all around, Garen and the others were minding their own business. Those who read books, those who drank water, and those who closed their eyes to relax. Honguo and Baiye Lingguan couldn't sit still and stood up to chat with people from other schools. Alice saw an old friend and came forward to chat with him. In fact, Garen knew very well that the Red Snow Alliance already had the background and strength of the big sect secretly, but it was not completely exposed, so everyone just thought that only the 3 8th level masters of Bing Hao, Bing Krak, and Bing Yang were in charge. Although the power has improved, it is still not too great. This time, we are fighting against a person with a weak strength. On the one hand, we want to push the Red Snow sect to a higher level. On the other hand, we also need to thoroughly understand the plan and conspiracy against the Energy Weapon Master. In order to finally snatch the Energy Weapon Master, the highest masterpiece of mechanics, the Union, that would be the best. The alliance is to unite the power of all the energy masters in the 3 major energy master cities. Each person disperses a little bit of free energy and concentrates it together to instill energy into the champion of the competition. The ones who compare are not the masters of the sect, but the disciples of the disciples, so this step can greatly shorten the training gap between the elite genius disciples of the major sects. Make the fastest accumulation to enter the 8th level. Because in general, the highest level in the competition is not to fall down the grade. No participating disciple has ever been able to reach the 8th level. Not falling down is already the pinnacle of the competition. What is needed to go up is hundreds and thousands of years of accumulation and comprehend. After all, reaching the state of Pan is not something that just anyone can achieve. The spacecraft soon entered the Naga planet and stopped on a vast grassland. Near the grassland, you could see the white snow-capped mountains in the distance. The spacecraft lowered the projection light beam and teleported the teleporters down in waves. There are special anti-gravity vehicles below for transportation. After Garen and others came down, they immediately saw a gorgeous golden anti-gravity speed car below. The car door was open, and several young people in golden clothes were waiting in the car. The leader of the faction has asked me to come and greet everyone from the Crimson Snow Alliance. Please, a young woman said loudly with a smile, with a hint of respect. You're welcome. Garen knew that it was the master of the bone metal sect sent by Two-Face. As one of the 15 major sects, the bone metal sect has an extremely strong foundation. There are 6 9th-level masters and 8 level masters in the section. There are more than 10 people, but there is no level 10. After Two-Face returned, he was promoted to level 10, which gave the sect great confidence. The entire bone metal sect is finally qualified to compete for the throne of the Holy Lord level force, and is expected to become the 4th largest Holy Lord level sect. Naturally, the disciples below also attach great importance to the instructions of the current new sect leader, hoping to give the greatest good impression to the sect leader's friends. In addition to the rumors circulating now, it is said that the treasures of the Red Snow Alliance have further improved Two-Face. If this is really the case, then the gold content of the Red Snow Alliance is really too great. Thinking of this, the respect on the face of the disciple responsible for the reception became even stronger. A group of people got into the car, and under the envious gazes of the surrounding mechanics and pilots, the car door slowly closed. The bone metal sect's flying car was like a huge flying saucer, shooting straight towards the plane in the distance. It's up to you to participate in the competition this time. Garen sat in the car, with the 3 geniuses sent by Chixu sitting in front of him. Red Fruit, White Knight, Prism. All 3 are eligible. Participated in the genre for no more than 150 years. In terms of strength, Honguo somehow inherited the soul seed and energy of an ancestor, and his strength was enough to rival inheritance-level masters, while Baya has a solid extreme winter physique. Although not as good as Honguo, he has made rapid progress and now has it. Resonating at the full moon level. At the last moment, Garen couldn't see through this little guy very well. He just felt that there seemed to be another soul body hidden in his body, a soul that seemed to be somewhat powerful. In addition, his own physique was a bit strange. Garen brought him with him. I came to the competition just to see what he is really like. Although he has reached level 10 now, he is not the orthodox level 10 in this world. At least he cannot transform into a black hole, nor can he connect to counter space, and he has endless endurance. His pure explosive power has reached the 10th level. The lethality is achieved, but the endurance is still not as good. Even if the cold peacock's devouring ability is terrifying, It cannot compare to the near-endless endurance of the 10th level Eternal Movers. Garen knew that his advantage lay in secret control. Using the seeds of distortion to create more 10th level Holy Masters, control them, and draw them into the Alliance is the key to developing potential power. Among the entire Energy Masters, although there are only 3 10th level Holy Masters, there are quite a few 9th level Masters. There are at least 50 people who work openly and secretly. If all this group of people could be parasitized. Don't worry, leader of the faction. I will try my best to move forward. Earn a good ranking for the faction. Baiye replied solemnly with a hint of coldness. We will definitely do our best. Please rest assured, leader. In contrast, the same sentence coming out of Ling Guang's mouth seemed a little less serious and lazier. It depends on the situation. If you can beat me, go ahead. If you can't beat me, there's nothing you can do about it. Hongguo is honest and has always been calm. At first, because of Rene's incident, he didn't have a strong sense of belonging to the Chixu sect, but later many people took care of him, and there was a big change at the top, so he stayed under various constraints and joined Chixu. This time, he came because he had a good impression of Garen. After all, the 2 sisters who took care of him were Garen. However, he let them go and let them continue to stay by his side. After spending so many days together, he had already regarded Xiao Yi as his relative. So for this reason, he will do his best to earn a good ranking for the Chixu sect. So among the 3, although he spoke the most lightly, he was the most determined. In addition, the soul seed he inherited still has a trace of identification with the Scarlet Snow sect, so if he really wants to compete in the competition, he will definitely go all out. Unfortunately, my position means that I cannot participate in the competition and can only watch. I originally wanted to go on stage in person this time. Garen sighed regretfully. If your identity is still on stage, won't it mean that people from other schools have no way to survive? Asho Bingyang shook his head and made a rare joke. If the leader is sent to the stage, it will be bullying the children. There is no point in it at all. We can just announce who is the champion and it will be over. Binghao laughed. So our Chixu's hope this time is on the 3 of you, Garen said sternly. You are likely to encounter non-relegation. Once you encounter it, admit defeat immediately and don't delay. Understood. Baiye agreed seriously, and the other 2 people also nodded. Garen took out 3 more gadgets, each of which looked like 3 small ice cubes. This is a little thing I made myself. It can erect an absolute ice wall at a critical moment to block the enemy's deadly attacks. Don't use it until the critical moment. This thing is very labor-intensive to make and is a disposable consumable. It can carry a powerful. The materials used to make powerful props are very rare. Even for the big sects, the rarity level is only 1 or 2 pieces compared to free items. They are only consumable items that will be scrapped after 1 use. So this determines that it is impossible for contestants to win the competition with powerful props made by powerful people. Garen did not give his twisted seed to the 3 of them. After all, the stronger the basic strength of the twisted seed is, the better. If it is given to them now, it will at most be upgraded to the inheritance level, which is meaningless to the current Scarlet Snow sect. After the 3 of them took the things, Garen began to whisper to the 3 of them some precautions. For him who has a memory of general trends, the precautions are definitely the most detailed. The car soon arrived at its destination, a luxury hotel in the capital of Nagadeco. There are already a group of people living inside. There are also speed cars parked outside. A group of people from the Chixu faction got out of the car, entered the hotel, and quickly settled down. Garen returned to the independent room, also opened the energy mark, and began to contact the other Alliance Guardians. After repeated encryption more than 10 times, the information communication channel was quickly established. The images of more than 20 people shrank directly and appeared on Garen's retina, each occupying a small area. "Leader, are you here?" one of the 5 9th level guardians said. "Well, Which of you are here? I'm at the Ulsan Hotel in the Nagateko capital, Galan replied. According to the plan, we have invited our friends to join us for a meeting, and we already have an idea on the other side. The mummy, one of the 3 peak 9th level people, said in a low voice. I also received an invitation from a 9th level peak master to inquire about the treasure. I am still trying to keep him interested. Another 9th level peak woman smiled. Be careful not to let others see your flaws. The last person was also at the 9th level, a wizened old man with gray hair. His skin had layers of wrinkles, which looked terrifying, as if the entire person's skin was about to collapse, completely separated from the muscles. Don't worry, I have lived for thousands of years. Do you still need to remind me about this? The woman said casually. You didn't call me in the emergency call? Leader, are you a little too out of touch? A sharp voice suddenly broke into the words of several people, and the image of Two-Face arrogantly destroyed a large area of images of 8th level guardians. It was directly suppressed and occupied a large area. I have received invitations from the 3 holy masters here. Hey, there are also 9 official letters of worship. They are all experts and veterans of various sects at the top of the 9th level. All 9. Garen's face was hidden under his helmet, and there was no hint of happiness or anger, but the eagerness in his tone still revealed his mood at the moment. Of course. I'm planning to discuss the price with them. Two-Face laughed sharply. Treasures are not so easy to get. If you take them away without paying the price, anyone will probably worry about problems. So it's heavy enough. The price is the most critical point. That's right, Garen nodded. The supplies will be shipped directly to Chixu's headquarters. I don't know if you can contact other Holy Sons, preferably those at the 9th level. Holy Son, it's okay. The two-faced man hesitated and nodded, but me taking the initiative to come to the door may make people suspicious. I will arrange this myself, so you don't need to ask more questions, leader. Although he was parasitized by the seed of distortion, his own mind was not affected. Although his power was increased, the seed of distortion could not completely control the parasite. It could only link this amplified power to the mother body, and that was all. So it is indeed correct to say that this is a completely harmless transformation. Although the parasites will spontaneously protect the mother, they will never be completely enslaved, lose their independence, or even completely disobey the mother's instructions. They just cannot harm the mother. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1120. After he finished speaking, the two-faced man disappeared directly with a slight rudeness. Obviously, even if he had to protect Garen and stay with him because of the twisted seed, as a 10th level master, he was not willing to bow down to him. After the image disappeared, several level 9 peakers had unswerving expressions. It's so outrageous, the woman couldn't help but say. It seems that he thinks his wings are stiff. The wrinkled old man laughed strangely in a low voice. Forget it, don't worry about him, just do your own thing. Be careful not to let the plan be revealed, and don't be too anxious to give out things, Garen warned. Clear. Do not worry. Several people agreed, one after another. The image disappeared immediately. Garen sat alone in the room and began to carefully examine possible omissions in this arrangement. Once this plan succeeds, the possible impact will be very terrifying. A lot of Holy Lord level masters, especially the Holy Lords of Mechanic Masters, will appear at once, which will definitely have an irreversible impact on Shinandi's plan. And the more this happens, the more his matrix will have to be hidden deepest, otherwise once if Shinandi discovers that she is the source of everything, the hatred value will instantly increase to the maximum. It's really difficult, Garen sighed, closed his eyes and fell back into quiet practice. The competition was held as scheduled and was divided into 3 competition areas. Representatives of each major school received notification qualification certificates issued by the Alliance. All affairs of the Red Snow sect are under the full command and arrangement of Osho Bingyang, and someone is specially assigned to handle all issues for the Red Snow Alliance. Galen directly received the VIP seat issued by the Alliance in the room. The leaders and deputy leaders of several large and medium-sized sects who came to visit him also received corresponding VIP seat vouchers. Chatting and laughing with a few people, Garin mixed with the senior leaders of medium and large sects and headed towards the 3rd Division together. He was observing carefully along the way. Although it was not bright and it was still early, there were already many people waiting at the entrance of the competition area, and more people were on their way to the block at the entrance. All I heard along the way were discussions about this competition. The entire city of Naga seemed to have turned into a vegetable market. Without conscious sound transmission, it was probably impossible to hear the words clearly. Speeding cars and airships kept coming and going, picking up and sending off representatives of the major schools. The top leaders of Garin and his party also had a special spaceship to transport them. They crossed the gate directly and landed on an apron inside. When he walked out of the spaceship, Garin clearly felt a trace of mysterious aura nearby. If he hadn't left a little bit of Jaliosi's identity and absorbed the essence energy of the blood beads, he probably wouldn't have been able to feel it. This subtle difference. They must know that I am out of control, and they will definitely target me in the competition. Garin knew this in his heart, while carefully locating possible suspects around him. The 3rd Division is very large, and the competition is a knockout system, with 2 players advancing to 1, the winner advancing, and the losers advancing 2 to 1 again. In this way, everyone is constantly ranked, until the ranking is determined. It sounds simple, but the rules are more complicated, because losers will continue to appear, and winners will appear among the losers, so that they can always be divided very finely. There are also judges reviewing supervisors' votes and the like. Garin didn't care about this rule. He was currently in the 12th Division of the 3rd Division, surrounded by medium-sized and small-sized factions. Although the Scarlet Snow sect has recently risen, it still shows that it is the sect that the 8th level master belongs to, and it is still a small and medium-sized section, so being assigned to this division is normal. Garin's attention scanned all the participating genres, and there was nothing worth noting. There is only one who has barely reached the double-month level, and is considered a relatively strong master. He was sitting between a row of VIP seats, with the female leader of a small sect on his left and an elder of a medium-sized sect on his right. I heard that the Chixu sect has been developing rapidly recently. The elder of the medium-sized sect smiled and pinched his mustache. Garin was wearing a white robe and a golden helmet. He could not clearly see the expression inside and did not respond. You, the representative of the Philiantia sect, don't seem to be very capable, the female leader of the small sect on the left said coldly. She had already quarreled with this elder once before. Looking at the appearance of the leader of the Chixu sect, I'm afraid he has great confidence in his disciples, otherwise he wouldn't be able to sit on his seat so securely and show no sign at all. Look at some sects, the elders personally go down to encourage the disciples, the elder continued without anger. What does the elder Gongnong want to say? Garin said calmly. It's nothing, it's okay, the elder continued to look away and looked at the 2 representatives off the field who were already preparing to play. Jialong remained calm. He knew that Shinandi's original plan was to win the championship, and then when the last 3 holy masters issued power-imbuing rewards for the champion, he suddenly launched an attack and used the characteristics of the alliance to detonate it in one fell swoop, directly injuring the 3 holy masters. So he must win the championship. The top management of the Ninmei master probably also expected this, so no matter which side, they will not let this competition go on in an honest manner, and they will definitely use tricks in it. As a spoiler, he is likely to be eliminated by them early to prevent variables from happening. Scanning his eyes across the crowd, Garin immediately noticed an unusual aura that had just appeared. In the auditorium sitting around, two figures in black cloaks loomed in the shadows of the crowd. Many of the mechanics and pilots who did not want to reveal their identities were wearing various disguises. Black cloaks were just one of them. A relatively common type. These two people looked inconspicuous. If Garen hadn't been searching carefully, he probably wouldn't have been able to find any trace of this group of people. After secretly paying attention to these two people, Garen withdrew his gaze and fell on the two contestants who were already on the field. In this subdivision, there are only two medium-sized faction representatives who can barely compete with the three members of the Chixu faction. And now one of the representatives is taking the stage. Throne faction, face off, New Aurora. Please prepare for the competition. A sweet female electronic sound sounded. Two young men came on stage and stood facing each other quietly. Started with a sound. The two released their energy weapons almost at the same time, a black bear fighting against a green fox. But the fox is weirdly much bigger than the black bear, twice as tall as the black bear. It looks like a behemoth, a giant fox. After releasing the energy weapon, the two stood apart, obviously testing each other first. To a certain extent, the energy level can sense the strength, purity, and endurance of the opponent's consciousness. The two of them went back and forth, and after the test was over, they both gave up their preparations, and with their consciousness surging, they rushed directly towards each other, fighting in close quarters. One of them seemed to be using close quarters gunfighting. From time to time, beams from high-energy destructive laser guns were shot out, hitting the surrounding protective screens and causing ripples. Both of them are resonant crescent moons. They seem to be representatives of some unknown faction, the old man beside Garen whispered. Among the people here, the only one he couldn't see through was the Galleons of the Scarlet Snow sect, so he kept trying to test Galleons all the way here. Both of them performed well. They obviously don't seem to be the ones who spend all day practicing in the section, the female sect leader on the other side whispered. Garen nodded slightly in agreement. The game continued, and the two men decided the winner by a hair's breadth. Compared with the victory between the two non-weapons, the female of the two non-weapons lost the victory because of a small mistake and left the game sadly. The Neo Aurora genre triumphed. The second game continues without any pause. The number of wins of the winner also determines the evaluation of the subsequent rankings. And this is also a way to test your endurance during battle. The contestant in the second game was a representative disciple who obviously had no combat experience. He was very nervous when he went up. Although his teacher outside tried his best to encourage him, it was just a face-to-face meeting. Before he could react, he was hit by his opponent. The giant fox whipped its tail and flew away, hitting the protective screen and falling unconscious. It was obviously pampered and overprotected. Then there were the third, fourth, and fifth. There seemed to be quite a few able weapon masters who had no actual combat ability. Some of them even had the highest level of awareness, but without exception, they were all killed in just a few hits. There are quite a few academic ninja masters who can only study theory, and a large number of them appear in competitions every year. Not surprisingly, many people dozed off. Those who came on stage at this time were all testers, and none of the strongest representatives of the true genre came up, so it was not the most critical time of the ranking competition. Generally, schools will put the strongest disciples at the end. As long as one of the three disciple representatives can reach a higher ranking, then the others will not matter, because the names will be ranked according to the highest. Soon, one after another, Baya of the Chixu faction came on stage. Garen also felt a little more energetic. Baya's opponent has played more than 10 games now, and someone from the school she belongs to comes up to replace her. Baya first bowed in the direction of Garen, and then looked at his opponent carefully. One move. Finish you. Baya raised his hand gently and made a slashing motion with contempt on his face. The other party was obviously irritated. Everyone can tell big words. Despite this, Facing the representative of the Chixia faction, one of the three strongest factions in the competition area, he still showed the most serious attitude, bent down slightly, and released the same huge black fox to block in front of yourself. Just as the fox was released, he felt a surge of cold air around him. Baye, who had been standing opposite him, disappeared in an instant. Suddenly, the warning device he wore suddenly sounded a sharp alarm. Left. He turned around suddenly, only to see a white shadow speeding towards him. Big blizzard palm. Large white snowflakes exploded, and Baye stamped his palm squarely on the opponent's chest. The huge ice palm force instantly poured into the opponent's body, destroying all the blood and nerves in the opponent's body wantonly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1121. The big blizzard palm, which can be used for long-range attacks, was changed by him to close combat. When Garen encountered this palm technique, he could not dodge it because of its extremely fast speed. Now Baye actually faintly used his own movement technique. Integrate into the palm technique, and use the palm technique to carry your body forward with lightning. The big blizzard palm is one of the three major skills of the red snow section. When it is struck in Baye's hands, its power is maximized instantly. After all, long-range attacks will eventually cause losses, but when fired close to the body, the instantaneous explosive power is definitely the strongest. At this moment, Baye already had full moon level skills. Hit the opponent's defenseless chest. The outcome is decided. Puff. The man raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood solidified into ice while it was still in the air, and fell to the ground into red ice cubes. Staggering back a few steps, the man threw his head back and fell unwillingly. He temporarily stopped breathing and was shocked by a slap. The people from New Aurora quickly stepped onto the stage through the opened barrier and lifted their own people off. "Do you want to continue the fight?" the referee asked. The elder in New Aurora looked frosty and shook his head decisively. "No. The Chixia faction wins. Invite the next opponent to the stage," the referee's voice immediately announced victory. "This is a round-the-clock battle. If we continue the battle from the beginning, won't it consume Baye's combat power for other contestants who originally had to take the stage? Are other schools taking advantage? So the best way now is to wait." Baye smiled contemptuously, turned around and returned to the place he occupied before, nodding respectfully in the direction of Garen. Garen nodded in response. "I don't even let go of energy weapons." What a strong practical ability. The elder beside Garen didn't know whether he was sarcastic or praising him. "If you don't speak, no one will treat you as a mute," the female leader said coldly. "I'm afraid someone will treat me as a mute," the elder replied with a smile and no anger. "On the one hand, this competition is for ranking, and on the other hand, it is also for potential disciples to come out to meet the market and communicate with each other. Qi Shui's representative is really merciless with this palm. There is no skill that will not fall down. If you want to get rid of that palm, you have to stop thinking about it for a few days." Tisk tisk. "The elder is so complimentary," Garen said lightly. From then on, Baye was able to finish everything with one palm, and no one could react faster than his sudden palm attack. The big blizzard palm was simply invincible, and some people behind him actually gave up. The first round of the subdivision area was soon over. Chixia sect ranked first and was the first to win directly. They left the subdivision area and advanced to the winner group of the big competition area. "Both of you, I'll take my leave first." Garen stood up, and as the three representatives left the arena, the competition area was not here, but somewhere else. It was basically no surprise that the Scarlet Snow sect was able to win so easily. Baye has an extremely winter physique, which has a bonus effect on Chixia Gong. In addition, he has a strong foundation in actual combat. It is no surprise that he can win so quickly. What worried Garen was that the two men in black didn't make any move from beginning to end. They actually didn't take action to snipe themselves. I wonder if their plans would be adjusted or changed due to their additional appearance. Naga star, somewhere in an extremely dark abyss. Where are the seeds? A clear female voice came out, slowly traveling far in the darkness. Already entered, 3 seeds, in 3 major competition areas. As long as we win the championship in the end, another little boy's voice answered. You need to pay attention to the Red Skull, White Lion, 9 Dragons, and Pluto's Sword. These 4 are among the top 8. Among them, the White Lion is the deepest hidden and the strongest. I am afraid it will pose a great threat to the seeds. Take care of it first. What about Gelias's problem? The captain has observed their contestants. He is not good enough to threaten the seeds, so there is no need to pay attention. I'm afraid he doesn't dare to actually disrupt our arrangement. Boom. Zhulong brutally punched his opponent into the ground, sinking him deeply into the ground. The bones and flesh all over his body were a mess, and the human form was almost invisible. He shook his strong upper body muscles. I told you to hit me head on. 1 punch. You can't catch even 1 punch. Go home and feed yourself. It's a waste of my time. The original 9-dragon beast has now grown up into a wild man with bronze skin. The opponent's elders hurriedly came to the stage to carry the seriously injured person off. No one dared to glare at him. 9 Dragons itself represented one of the top physiques among special talents. He is not of the same level of physique, and is not even qualified to compete with him. Next, Zhulong said loudly and boringly. This is the 106 opponents he has defeated, and none of them can survive his 3 punches. Most of them are things that can be knocked down with 1 punch. This made Zhulong, who was deliberately looking for an opponent, very unhappy. Zhulong wore some golden decorations all over his body, and he could still vaguely see the shadow of the delicate little boy from back then. The next one didn't come on stage for a long time. Zhulong became a little impatient and plucked his ears. I said, next one. Didn't you hear that? He glared and shouted towards the other side. Opposite him, a young man with a pale face was just about to take the stage. He was so frightened that he sat down on the ground and couldn't get up. I admit defeat. I'll admit defeat too. Me too. Immediately, a series of opponents lined up behind them quickly gave in. The competition areas in the competition area were all over in an instant, and Zhulong glanced around in a daze. All the masters of other schools couldn't help but avoid his sight when they saw him. These admissions of defeat were obviously to allow him to win as quickly as possible and preserve his own strength to obtain a better ranking. Spit, 9-dragon beast felt very unhappy. Ever since the King of Power and Mammoth, there has been no worthy opponent. It's so frustrating. He simply stepped down and left the stage. The first winner of the first division is decided here. Second division. White Lion's Claw. A gentle male voice sounded slowly. After a violent rumble. On the field, a black hole appeared above the head of a man in white. From the black hole, a terrifying giant lion leg more than 10 meters thick stretched out and slammed his opponent into the ground. Blood instantly exploded and spread everywhere. Land. Flesh, bones, internal organs and debris were everywhere. The White Lion wins, the referee's female voice sounded. White Lion, an elder from a big sect, stared viciously at the man on the field. His dearest and proud disciple was instantly killed by the opponent. Such hatred. Pray that you don't fall into my hands, the elder's cold and vicious voice came over. The White Lion didn't care at all. Thank you for your advice, he replied gently and politely. In the last game, the White Lion wins. The cruel White Lion, the reputation of the White Lion in the second division continues to spread towards the death of other opponents as each opponent is either dead or maimed. And the reputation of the 9 Dragons of Power has also spread from the first division. That kind of terrifying power can directly destroy all the opponent's attack weapons with 1 punch. It has exceeded the scope of the inheritance level and directly reached the peak of not falling down. Zhuolong's brute strength seems to have only been revealed a little. The third competition area. On the field, a slim girl in red was fighting fiercely with a blue-eyed man dressed in black and wearing a black mask on the opposite side. There were heavy whip shadows between the two, and the red and black whips continuously made extremely sharp whip marks. Each whip mark scratched the ground, showing deep scratches and ravines. Resonance. Thunder. The girl in red suddenly raised her hand. With a rumble, a bolt of blue lightning suddenly pulled out from her whip. With a violent rumbling vibration, he instantly crossed the distance between Shumi and appeared in front of the man in black. Mingxia. The man in black's other free hand disappeared instantly and appeared directly between Zi Leiden and his own face. He raised his index finger and tapped it gently. Laugh. His fingers instantly pierced the thunder and lightning, and then a ball of gray-yellow sand erupted, directly wrapping everything in it. The yellow sand ball only lasted for half a second, and then disappeared again after swallowing the thunder and lightning. Xiaohong, the girl in red, seemed to have anticipated this change. While the opponent was dealing with this move, she shot a red line directly from her body and shot straight towards the opponent like lightning. The red line quickly stretched in mid-air, and soon turned into a ruby skeleton as tall as a person. The red skull rushed straight towards the opponent, its sharp 5 claws making a harsh sound in the air. The speed was even several times faster than the whip, and it was in front of the opponent almost as soon as it appeared. Leaping over the sand, the man turned around like lightning and whipped his leg. Bang! It happened to hit the red jade skeleton, who came back. A large amount of yellow sand exploded on his legs, which intertwined with the red light on the red skull's body and remained in a stalemate for several seconds before they suddenly separated. Have equal shares. The protracted battle had to continue, and both of them were out of breath. On the other side, the Chixu sect triumphed all the way, winning more and losing less, and soon entered the final showdown area of the third competition area. That is, the area near the arena where the red skull and the man in black are still fighting fiercely. At this time, more than half of the schools have been eliminated, and in the winner group, there are still 12 schools left. 3 of them are medium-sized genres, and all the rest are large-sized. And Chixu is one of the 3 medium-sized schools. It is natural that his current scale is called medium-sized. When Garin entered with Chixu's people, he quickly saw Yagaduo sitting among the candidate contestants. The queue of the Chixu sect seemed to attract Yagduo's attention, and his eyes moved this way. He seemed to be looking for Garin, but soon he lowered his gaze with a slight disappointment. Once here, we can no longer transmit messages to the outside world at will. This is the general competition area, with an absolute isolation barrier. Galen also temporarily closed his communication channel. It can be seen that Yagduo hides his appearance and aura. Although he can't hide it from top experts, ordinary people can't tell his identity and face. The name he reported was Heiyeo, not Yagduo. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1122. The two made an appointment to meet on the field, but now each of them hides their identity and does not show their true colors. So now Reese can't contact the two of them. Low-level voice communications are isolated here. Where are galleons and accords? They didn't come to such a big event. Reese put her arm on Dios's arm and walked into the competition area with the Black Knife team. She secretly observed the contestants' seats in the arena, trying to find the figures of her 2 friends. This is the winners group. If you want to find those 2 friends, you should go to the subdivision area. This is where the masters who are the fastest to enter the general competition area stay. Dios shook his head with a smile. Is this the winners group? I didn't understand clearly. Reese stuck out her tongue, feeling a little naughty and cute. This is what Dios likes about her. She is dazed, beautiful, can dress up, can act coquettishly, and can pretend to be cute. Men, Don't they all like their women to be cute if they act coquettishly? You are no longer on the same level as them. It is estimated that it will be difficult for them to come in here. Only the winners' representatives and elders can enter here. Dios smiled. I am qualified to come in because of my grandfather's glory. That's right, Reese nodded understandingly. Watch the game carefully. This is a real practical experience that you can't miss. It will be of great benefit to your practical vision. Yes, I understand, Reese nodded sensibly. Looking around at the people around, they were all masters with obscure auras. It turned out that she had unknowingly entered another level. I gave them the opportunity, but they didn't cherish it. She felt a little sad in her heart. After all, they were friends who came together in the first place. Isn't it normal for a weak person to cling to a strong person? It's so tiring for a person to struggle alone, and the result may not necessarily be successful. Is it worth it? Wouldn't it be great to find someone like her to rely on, to be safe and stable, and not to live so tiringly? She also planned to introduce two powerful female mechanics to Heiyao and Garen, but it was a pity that they themselves failed to live up to their expectations. Look. The three representatives with the most consecutive wins are here. Dio's voice was filled with excitement. My brother Black Sword's Pluto sword is here too. Reese immediately stopped her attention and quickly followed his direction. The winner group of the final competition area, Red Skull, Black Glory, Pluto Sword, and Red Ice. The referee's final decision was made, and the four strongest players were selected based on the number of wins. These are the four strongest players in Division 3. Four people with very different temperaments stood up and prepared to accept the challenge from others in the winner group. Anyone who is confident in themselves can go on stage and challenge them. This is the last chance given to the other losers, and then they will fight against each other. And at this time, there are still subdivisions that have not ended and the winner will come out, so this is also waiting for the remaining winners to come out to face the four. Ruzi's eyes glanced at Heiyao, but she didn't recognize him. That black aura covered up many features. The second event of the schedule begins. Challenge. Challengers are asked to take the stage according to their code names. The referee's voice sounded. It's about to begin, and my brother Pluto Sword will definitely win the decisive victory, a senior sister next to Dio said confidently. Yes, if senior brother unleashes his full strength, no one here can stop him, a junior brother in the black sword whispered. The final champion must belong to senior brother, Dios nodded in agreement. No one knows the terror of senior brother Pluto Knife better than them. The four of them stood on a separate elevated platform, waiting for the challenger to come on stage below. Soon someone jumped on. As soon as he went up, the man was whipped down by the Red Skull in an instant, and his clothes were ripped to pieces. Amid a burst of laughter, the able weapon master was led down with a blushing face by the elders of his sect. It's so humiliating. It's true, Rice couldn't help but laugh. Sister Red Skull is so powerful. She was among the top 3 strongest in the year we took the exam, and she is still so strong now. That's right, Red Skull's talent is extremely strong. As long as he is trained properly, he can be a top master. Dios nodded, as long as he doesn't fall in the middle. Soon another one came up, challenging the Pluto sword. He was almost cut in two by a knife, and was rescued in embarrassment while covering the wound on his waist that was almost cut in half. As expected of senior brother. The same thing can be done with one strike, Dios said with a smile. Who is more powerful, Sister Red Skull or Brother Pluto sword? Reese asked delicately. Of course it's senior brother. After all, the Red Skull has only entered the inheritance level not long ago, and the senior brother has already entered the non-falling level. He is the strongest younger generation of my black sword. However, I heard that there seems to be a special danger in the Red Skull, and you need to be extremely careful. I don't know if it's just a rumor. Challengers came on stage one after another, and Pluto sword and Red Skull, as well as Chi Bing and Heiyao knocked down the challengers one by one. As the will battle continued, Red Skull began to look a little struggling. He had already consumed a large part of his consciousness and skill by defeating the master who used sand. Now he was being fought in a will battle again. He was the weaker among the four. 1. Her face turned pale. He Yao was still relaxed and effortless. Every opponent was swung by his black energy scorpion tail. Any resistance was in vain. The gap between the two sides was too big. They might still struggle as if they were on equal terms, but at this moment, the consciousness is hidden in the black energy, and it has probably reached an extremely high level. After the challengers who came to the stage collapsed at the first touch, no one was willing to take the stage again. There was no hope at all. Qi Bing is actually a pseudonym. Qi Bing is the red fruit of the Qi Snow section. Both Baiye and Ling Guang failed to enter the final competition for the strongest qualifications due to a loss, so only Hongguo, who went all out, is still standing on the battlefield at this moment. Indeed, as Jia Long expected, although Hongguo agreed easily, he was the most serious and desperate when it came to actually doing it. Baiye belongs to the data type who will give up directly after analyzing the strength of the enemy and ourselves and feels that he can't beat him, while Ling Guang is coping with the same task. Only red fruits. This guy is the most desperate. Jia Long sat below, watching it, and felt quite satisfied in his heart. Such talents are the real backbone that Jixu sect needs. Baiye is too selfish and carries the hatred of his own family. Prism is too mysterious and its true purpose is unknown. Only Hongguo can be said to be a true Miaohong. He is the grandson of senior sister Renee. He also inherited the secret martial soul seed from the ice hell. He received the favor of the secret martial master and has a sense of protection for the Scarlet Snow sect. Now that the inheritance levels are coming up one by one, Hongguo can no longer hold on. Garen looked at the statistics and found that the Red Snow sect had accumulated enough wins to enter the finals. It's just that he can't be the strongest representative, but that's okay. It's also a good thing that he's not too eye-catching. Seeing Hongguo becoming more and more difficult on the stage, although he had not yet shown his defeat, he was now entangled with a heritage-level giant bird weapon master, so Garen decisively sent a message to him. Hongguo, that's enough. You've done enough. The red fruit on the stage twitched slightly. From the high platform, he glanced at Galen below. No, I can continue to fight. He saw the proud smiling faces of the younger sisters and the younger sisters in the audience, as well as Uncle Ice Fox loudly patting his chest and pointing at himself and talking to the people around him, as well as several companions, and there was Kanan, the girl who had always supported him, watching him silently. There are still so many people supporting me. I am going down so early and I am going down before I have tried my best. I am not willing to give in. Hongguo decisively ignored Garen's message and continued to fight with his opponent. Garen below still wanted to send a message, but found that the little guy ignored him at all, and he suddenly felt dumbfounded. Are there any company bosses these days who would dislike their employees for not working hard? Of course not. So he simply let him be. Alice and Asho Bingyang, who were following behind, also had strange looks on their faces. I had never encountered a little guy with such a personality before. As for the other masters, they all went to other competition areas to prepare for their tasks, leaving only 2 people to compete here. Did you see it? Garen's deep voice reached their ears. This is the elite of Jixu, the school's hope. Although senior sister Renee has gone, she left behind more than just memories. Alice nodded silently. If Jixu and I were like this, there would be no need to worry that the school would continue to decline. Asho Bingyang sighed. Focus on protecting and training him, Garen said calmly, setting the tone. Once this energy master crisis is over, it is inevitable that Hongguo will receive key training. Clear. Asho Bingyang nodded. Alice watched from the side, and suddenly she was no longer so resistant to Garen's seizure of power. No matter what, they are still a part of Chixu after all, and they are also fighting for Chixu's rise. She still remembered what Garen said when he took office. At this time when the sect is in crisis, I, Jialong, will work hard to create the most glorious hegemony in the ages. Bang! Another opponent finally came down from the red fruit stage. Everyone could see that Honguo and Red Skull were at the end of their strength, and everyone concentrated on attacking them. Another opponent takes the stage. Honguo's vision was already a little blurry, and his whole body was soaked with sweat, but it was quickly condensed into ice by the cold air emanating from his body. You are about to die, should I stand in this arena? The opponent was a hook-nosed woman with a sinister face, holding two knives and facing Honguo with a smile. Honguo noticed the sect symbol of his opponent, which was one of the 15 major sects, the Gurong sect, with a profound background. It's probably going to be another tough fight. You can give it a try and see if I can do it. Honguo has always been an unruly person who eats soft things rather than hard things. At this time, he straightened his back and acted as if nothing had happened. Tisk. Dang. The two figures collided instantly, and the snowflakes and flames cancelled each other out and melted. Sputtering was everywhere on the high platform. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1123. On the other side, the Red Skull finally couldn't hold on any longer and was knocked off the stage by a young man with a look of shame on his face and passed out. Sorry, the victory was not glorious enough. The man politely apologized to the elder of the Red Skull. You are very measured in your actions. At this point, she has reached her limit. It doesn't matter. The female elder shook her head, hugged Red Skull lovingly and left. However, the two also fell out of the competition due to the failure to maintain the victory. Next, the strongest player in the entire division can only be selected from among the three. He Yao was still very relaxed. Occasionally he would challenge someone, but he would deal with it immediately and roll down with serious injuries. Regardless of his strength and background, he has no fear at all. Nebula's background is a well-deserved local leader. No one in the local area dares to compete. Therefore, even if he severely injured his opponent, the elders of these schools would at most look at each other with anger, but they would not dare really pursue it. Black Yao stood alone on the battlefield, arrogant and arrogant. A bunch of losers. They don't even dare to go on stage. He looked down at the challengers' seats from a high position, with a clear look of contempt on his face. Although all the challengers were furious after being stabbed, none of them really came up to challenge him. They all endured it. Weak people are so pitiful. He Yao did not hide his contempt. He turned sideways and looked at the young man who had just defeated the Red Skull. A fight. A secret flashed through the young man's eyes. He smiled gently and shook his head. I don't dare to humiliate myself. He Yao snorted and simply sat down cross-legged and rested quietly. A mysterious sound suddenly came from the young man's body and floated into the distant audience. The Red Skull is dealt with. Next up is the 9 dragons. Clear. A dark figure in the audience flashed through the shadows of the crowd. A boring fight. The Pluto sword slashed out with a cold slash. After turning in several directions, the violent black knife marks pierced into the opponent's chest like lightning. Laugh. Blood splattered, and the opponent couldn't keep up with his movement speed. He could only watch helplessly as the knife mark folded and stabbed into his chest. Next. The challenger was seriously injured and was carried off. The reputation of the strongest black sword had made the challengers almost give up on continuing the fierce battle. Looking at him like this, will battles have no effect at all. The consumption of a challenger on him is too small. Challenge abandoned. The referee's voice finally sounded. The challenge time is over, and those who persisted in the end were Pluto's sword and Heiyao. As representatives of the two major factions, Black Knife and Nebula. This is also what everyone expected. The top factions are just different, and this result is not beyond everyone's expectations. The final decision, Black Sword Pluto Sword, versus Nebula, Black Yao. The referee's voice sounded again. This represents the will of the three holy masters. No one can resist. Because the person presiding over the referee is a clone of the will of the three holy masters. With a snap, the two towering battle platforms suddenly merged together. Hey! Heiyao opened his eyes and stood up, adjusted his body, and walked directly towards the Pluto knife. His whole body was filled with black energy, and he stepped onto the opponent's fighting stage step by step. The smoke-like black energy rushed straight towards the Pluto sword, the number one black sword. Haha, I've heard your name for a long time. Heiyao, Nebula's second youngest master. Pluto sword's face was calm, and there was a voluptuous purple-black pattern thread on his forehead, giving people a cold and monstrous feeling. I heard that your star condensation hand is very powerful. I wonder if you can break my Pluto breath. Would you know if you try it? Heiyao grabbed it with 5 fingers and pulled out a handful of dense black energy out of thin air. It turned into a ball of viscous liquid like black slurry and dripped on the platform, immediately corroding into deep pits of different sizes. This is the Xingning hand, a terrifying block-killing technique known as the number one in corrosion in the genre. He used the extra block-killing technique from the beginning, which shows that Heiyao attaches great importance to this battle. Buzz. Almost at the same time, 2 black auras burst out from the 2 men, rising into the sky and piercing the clouds. In an uproar, the entire audience stood up. Not downgraded. Actually not downgraded. Someone yelled. He has reached such a high level that he will not fall down even when he is just a disciple. It's unimaginable. In the VIP seats, all the judges also changed their colors. Only then did a single competition area reach this level. I don't know what level it will reach in the future. This competition will probably exceed everyone's expectations. Now we have something good to watch. A middle-aged woman sitting next to Garen's face moved and her eyes narrowed. Kill, Heiyao suddenly moved. The black energy all over his body twisted and condensed, turning into a huge black scorpion. The entire black scorpion suddenly rushed towards the opponent. Boom! The scorpion's tail needle pierced the ground of the platform and directly opened a large hole more than 1 meter wide. A black shadow shot out from the edge of the hole like lightning. One knife. Laugh. The black light shone, and a slender and inconspicuous knife mark zigzagged through the air, arriving at Heiyao's side in an instant. Silently, he sliced open the scorpion's shell and stabbed inside. Huaguang, Heiyao twisted around, his body turning at high speed. His whole body was like a top, and the scorpion's tail needle also turned and swung at high speed, swiping hard towards the mark of Pluto's knife. For a moment, the battlefield was completely black, and nothing could be seen clearly. The two blacks were mixed together, and it was impossible to tell who was who. It could only be vaguely judged from the boiling and rolling black air that the two were still fighting fiercely. Suddenly the black energy exploded, completely revealing the two people fighting inside. The two people's bodies were intertwined, and their hands and feet were colliding at high speed, almost turning into blurred shadows. Only the terrifying shocks and ripples caused by the intersection of fists and feet could be seen. The black energy was also shaken away by the pure gathering power of the two people's shrinking and never falling light. Shijizan. Suddenly Heiyao turned around and exploded with a crescent-shaped black blade, cutting in all directions. Swift. Pluto's sword pulled out a black knife with his backhand and faced it head-on. The blade made a sound like the chirping of a swallow, and with a strange downward sweeping movement, it strangely avoided Heiyao's attack on Yuya, and flashed directly behind Yuya, slashing towards its face. The black knife turned and folded, sparing He Yao's right hand who wanted to stop it, and draped it hard on He Yao's left shoulder. Laugh. Bloody light flashed. Shiji slash. 10 times. Under the pain, Black Yao exploded crazily, and circles of black crescents spread out from his body in all directions. All directions above, below, left, and right were surrounded and occupied by black crescents, turning his whole body into a black ball. Boom! Black crescents exploded in all directions. For a moment, the entire battlefield turned black and nothing could be seen clearly. Take me, Black Glory World Extreme Slash, there was a roar. A blade tens of meters high struck out of thin air from the chaos. Osprey. Breath of Hades, faced with this sword, Pluto's sword knew it was bad, and the opponent instantly burst out with all his strength. This time, it was terrifying and he was seriously injured. Not daring to be careless, the eternal light in his body condensed and turned into the same substantial sword light. Slash forward in the air. Roar. A tall, vague human figure wearing black armor vaguely appeared behind him. He seemed to be the legendary and mysterious Hades. Pluto roared slightly, flew forward with the light of the sword, and sprayed out a stream of translucent black air. Boom! The two sword lights collided at the same time, but strangely, the Pluto sword collapsed at the first touch. It was not as powerful and terrifying as expected. This made the Pluto sword suddenly stunned. He suddenly felt that there was something weird about the sword light aura erupting from the other party. Is this? His eyes suddenly opened wide, but it was too late. The giant black blade slid down in front of him. Laugh. His entire body, from his left shoulder to his right leg, was struck by the knife, creating a terrifying and huge wound. Blood instantly burst out from the wound like a fountain. The eternal light of Hades' sword quickly weakened. He lost. The loss was inexplicable and completely incomprehensible. The light of the sword left a deep mark on the ground, which was the remaining power after breaking through the eternal light. There was no longer any hidden black energy in He Yao's body, and he stood on the battlefield completely naked. This is my strongest sword. It can absorb the opponent's power and increase my own Black Glory World Slash. Pluto sword? Hee, if it were replaced by 9 Dragon Beast, I might be more afraid. His eyes looked around, and finally fixed on the position of Chixu sect. Garen. Come down and fight, the voice vibrated loudly, causing the entire venue to buzz. With a swish, He Yao single-handedly pointed at Garen at the VIP table, the chairman of the Red Snow sect. Suddenly, the whole place was in an uproar again. No one would have thought that he would actually challenge the leader of the Red Snow Alliance, who has been in the limelight recently. Having just escaped from a simple and tyrannical battle, He Yao didn't even take a break and immediately wanted to challenge the leader-level master? Is he crazy? The most unbelievable thing was the people from the Black Knife faction in the audience. Senior brother Pluto sword, he was defeated? How is that possible? A group of junior brothers and sisters turned pale and ugly. Pluto sword was already the strongest disciple in their sect, but he could be defeated so mysteriously. Unable to understand. Why did that happen with the last knife? How could it be possible to lose? Dios turned pale and murmured to himself in a low voice. The one who was more shocked than him was none other than Reese, who was looking at the battlefield with wide eyes at this moment. That's a cord. Reese's eyes were so wide open that she almost felt her eyelids stinging. How could that be? How could this happen? She kept observing the person on the stage carefully over and over again, trying to make sure that the other person might just look a little similar, but judging from the other person's tone of voice and detailed features, this person named He Yao was indeed the person. There are many accords, no doubt about it. Isn't Yigduo an ordinary disciple of Xingyuan? How could it be? She suddenly recalled the faintly contemptuous look in Yigduo's and Galen's eyes when they left at the party. Relying on others will only stagnate progress. You take care of yourself. These were the last words he said to himself in a message before leaving. At this time, Dios also recognized Yegdo's identity. He was actually one of the two people that Reese wanted to introduce to him at the party with them earlier. His eyes suddenly widened. Chief of Chixu, Garen. How dare you come down and fight? Yegdo's voice shook again, and everyone in the entire venue could hear it clearly, like thunder. This galleon? Is it? Reese and Dios suddenly thought of a terrible possibility and looked at the VIP seats at the same time. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1124. In the stands, Galen's face was hidden under his helmet, and his expression could not be seen. The VIPs around him were whispering, but he was the only one who sat in his original position, motionless. The challenge complies with the regulations. The final winner is qualified to challenge one person in the VIP seat. Leader of the Chixu Alliance, please accept the challenge, the referee's voice rang. This represents the will of the three holy masters. Not everyone among the energy masters can object. You only have one chance to challenge. Garen's calm voice came from under his helmet. You don't need to waste it on me. Isn't it just for this moment that you and I hide our strength? He Yao suddenly dispersed the trace of black energy condensed on his face, revealing a young and ordinary face, a little white, a little strange. Come on. Prove here, you and me, who is the real genius. He swung the blade and shook it, sending out terrifying waves of eternal light, vibrating the surrounding air until obvious circle ripples appeared. His eyes were fixed on Garen. Apparently, he had suspected that Garen might be the Garen he knew. He couldn't contact his friends, and he searched the entire Chixu Alliance and couldn't find a second person named Garen. There were only rumors that the current Chixu, the leader of the Alliance, was named Garen, so he became suspicious. However, for a friend who had always been only at the inheritance level to suddenly become a terrifying and powerful top leader, the gap was really too big. A little, so he took advantage of this challenge to point it out directly. Ever since he knew that Garen was hiding, he had long wanted to fight this guy. Garen still sat motionless. But the referee's light barrier didn't care what his reaction was, and it came directly over, completely covering the area where he was sitting alone within the scope of the decisive battle. The other VIPs around were isolated, leaving He Yao and Galleon alone. The air was distorted for a moment, and the position where Garen was sitting was directly teleported onto the battlefield, appearing opposite Black Yao. Seeing that he couldn't push it away, Garen finally sighed. You are no match for me. He didn't get up because he didn't want to expose himself so early. But he didn't want to be forced to this point by this unexpected situation. Really, you won't know until you fight him. Without saying a word, He Yao threw the blade and suddenly turned into a huge black scorpion and enveloped him, and the whole person turned into a black shadow and rushed over. Black Glory World Ultimate Slash. Double. Two staggered black knife marks shot out of the air, hitting Garen hard. The eternal light spread, shaking the protective barrier of the entire battle platform to the point of crumbling and shaking continuously. It's useless. Garen sat there, quietly watching the knife marks flying towards him. My absolute force field of decline of all things can absorb any external force and turn it into nutrients. Your attacks are meaningless. The two knife marks flew slower and slower, and flew smaller and smaller. When they flew in front of Garen, only two thin black lines were left. They struggled to fly a little further, and finally exploded with two pops like soap bubbles. Interesting, He Yao had a ferocious smile on his face, but his eyes were serious as never before. We have known each other for so many years. I thought I had hidden it well enough. I didn't expect you to be so scary and act like I am young. This time I finally revealed your true face. Aren't you the same? Garen said silently under his helmet. You're not even downgraded yet. Are you ashamed of pretending to be at the resonance level? The two quickly exchanged transmissions, but they were conducting high-end transmissions between eternal light without anyone hearing them. Low-end transmissions were not allowed, but high-end transmissions were not so easy to ban, so naturally there was no problem. Then why did you suddenly come to challenge me? Garen asked rudely. What the hell do you mean? I just suspected your identity as a kid, so I came here to fight and test it out. I wasn't sure at first, but I didn't expect you to admit it right after we started fighting. Take my move, Shadow Slash. Ah! Yagadugo roared wildly, transmitting the sound secretly while roaring. Give me some face and try your best to do something. If you can beat me just sitting down, doesn't that make me look too arrogant? Okay, Garen was helpless. This guy Yagduo never knew what politeness meant, and he would do whatever he wanted. Forget it, give him some face. Move your hands, then move your hands. He first raised his right hand, then after thinking about it, switched to his left hand, and then stretched out his little finger forward. Yag struck with one more knife, and his eyes turned green when he saw this scene. Ah! He howled even harder, and this time everyone could hear that he was really howling. The sword with all its strength finally hovered in the air just in front of Garen's little finger. Puff! Yagduo's whole body was like a deflated balloon. He collapsed directly and lay on the battlefield. All his strength was completely absorbed by the withering force field of all things. He stared at Garen weakly. You guys are so poisonous. With the roll of his eyes, the guy passed out immediately. Garen's face was invisible under his golden helmet, and he let out a strange breath. He patted the seat lightly, and his whole body levitated, returning to a position in the VIP seat, and sat back motionless. From beginning to end, he never even stood up. The battle only lasted a few dozen seconds and ended. This made everyone else who wanted to see the details of Garen a little disappointed, but thinking that Garen was also a master-level master after all, and one of the top powerhouses who have been in the limelight recently, they understood in their hearts. If one does not fall down, he will if he can force out his strength, then other top masters will not have to live. Challenge failed. The referee's plain voice sounded again. The merger of the total schedule begins. A slow, huge rumble like before an earthquake spread from beneath the earth, and everyone in the entire venue felt an obvious huge vibration. Garen looked around. Although everyone had been notified in advance and had been mentally prepared, they still seemed a little excited when they really had to face this large-scale migration method. This is really a big deal. Hundreds of thousands of people are all teleported together, connected to the audience, and seamlessly embedded in another new arena. The level of sophistication required by this kind of teleportation is far beyond what ordinary experts can achieve. But Garen always felt uncomfortable. He didn't know why, but he always felt inexplicably unsettled in the noisy arena. What's wrong? He kept looking around, but he didn't find any big suspicious objects. The most important thing was that the man in black who was here before seemed to be unaware of the signs now. Is the mission accomplished? Or is a bigger trouble brewing? Garen's mind was racing, analyzing all the possibilities. The merger of the competition areas is completed. Today's competition ends. The finals will start at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. The elimination system will be based on factions. The referee's voice sounded again. The competition itself is very simple. Although there are huge crowds of people, it is held every few years after all. With the large number of people, the skill masters are all masters who pay attention to efficiency, so it will not drag on for a long time. After the merge is complete, the blue sky around the arena suddenly changed, instantly turning into a sheet of red clouds. At this time, everyone in the subdivision was already in a huge circular arena, surrounded by a sea of spectators. There were also a large number of photography equipment set up among the spectators, which were transcribed to other distant areas for live broadcast. 9 dragons! 9 dragons! 9 dragons! 9 dragons! A burst of overwhelming shouts sounded in unison, like the tide and waves, and the entire stadium was filled with the sound of shouting for the 9 dragons. Only then did everyone in the 3rd division realize that they had been transferred to a very large arena. The entire 3rd division audience and everyone else only occupied 1/3 of the area of this huge arena. The remaining 2 large areas were already occupied by seas of people. At the bottom of the arena is a circular high platform, on which a tall and strong bronze man raises his hands in the air, looking triumphant, walking around the platform. Magnetic Field Dragon. Some enthusiasts even held up metal cheering signs and waved them vigorously. Be more fanatical, Zhuolong slapped his chest fiercely and roared. 9 dragons! 9 dragons! 9 dragons! The shouts around him became louder, mixed with the screams of many girls. What's going on? Some of the other distinguished guests with Garen asked dissatisfied. It's normal for the strongest master of the magnetic field to be a little arrogant, someone answered. White Lion and Black Yao are not as crazy as him. Young man, what's wrong with being a little wild? Leader Chixu, what do you think? The female elder on the side looked at Garen. How others behave is their freedom. I won't comment, Garen said calmly. There were densely packed black airships floating in the sky above their heads. These airships floated and moved slowly, exuding a terrifying sense of force field oppression. It was obvious that there were powerful masters on board. One of the largest airships is equivalent to a small city, shaped like a black hexagon, floating in the sky. Above it marks one of the 3 major school symbols, the magnetic field. Garen raised his eyes and glanced at the magnetic field airship. The black hole-like aura of a level 10 person was clearly visible inside, and the other 10 level 9 auras were equally terrifyingly entangled together, forming a huge coercive pressure field that covered the entire huge arena. Magnetic field inside the airship. On the gorgeous black patterned floor, there is a woman in a black skirt that is connected to the ground. She wears a black pointed hat and a low-cut long skirt that is extremely black. The hem of the skirt merges with the ground, making the woman look like she is growing on the ground. Large tree on metal ground. Her skin is pale and her eyes are narrow and sharp, giving her a cold and seductive temperament. Several men and women were sitting in front of the woman. They seemed to have just finished reporting things and were calmly waiting for the woman's instructions. Holy Master Star Magnetic, my saint's judgment is in this final, the other side will definitely take action. Are you going to join us or insist on your own will? Please give me an answer. A man looked solemn. Whispered. Star Magnetic Holy Lord closed his eyes and responded, but his arms like snow were folded on his lower abdomen, as if he was thinking. In this situation, you still can't let go of your suspicion of other holy lords? At this critical moment against energy masters, if we don't unite together, everything will be swallowed up by those greedy people hiding in the dark. Your Majesty the Holy Lord, haven't you made up your mind yet? The man seemed to be the leader of these people. He had a strong aura, with the slightest fluctuation of the 9th level peak. He looked handsome and noble in a black suit. The atmosphere suddenly became a little dull.